All right, we can come back to that shelf later. We have some more advanced functions there, and then a lot of the common modeling tools are also here. But let's move on to the toolbox. This is the bar here at the left where you see these icons. Your top icon is your selection tool or select tool. And as long as you have that, you're not going to affect the geometry. You're just going to be selecting different meshes. The hotkey for that is Q. So if I'm on some other tool and I just want to select something, I can hit Q. Okay. That's good to know because it kind of resets your tool if you can go to the select tool. You have some options for selecting. This one is a lasso, so I can select anything that the lasso touches. Another way of selecting is the paint select tool. Now this happens on a sub-object level, which we'll talk about. We haven't talked about that yet, but it allows you to paint your selection onto the object, and then you can start to affect that. Below those, we have our three basic translation tools. The first one is move, and when you have that tool selected, you'll see this manipulator with three colors, red, green, and blue, to show you the three different axes or three different dimensions in the scene. So we'll come back to these tools and talk a little bit more about them, but just for now, you have a move tool where you can move things. The hotkey for that is W. So Q for select and W to move. You can see how that changes. The next tool down is rotate, and the manipulator looks a little bit different. It's rings instead of arrows, right? So that's showing how we're going to rotate things in space. The hotkey for that is E, YE. Well, you might have noticed Q, W, and E are right next to each other. So the purpose of using those hotkeys is just to get things under your left hand for convenience. Now, most people are right-handed, but if you're left-handed, you might want to Google hotkeys for Maya for left-handers. But the default ones are kind of biased toward right-handed people who may be using their right hand on the mouse. That allows you to leave your left hand on the QWERTY buttons, Q, W, E. R, as you can see, is scale. So that gives you yet another manipulator with squares on it that allows you to scale in all three dimensions at once, or two dimensions at once, or a single dimension. So it's good to keep your hand where you can reach those hotkeys. That allows you to quickly switch from selecting to moving to rotate and scaling. And as you develop the habit of using those hotkeys, this will speed up your workflow and allow you to create things faster. All right, moving down in the toolbox here, we can find this icon. And this is going to change from time to time because it represents the last tool that you used. I don't use this very often, but if you're wondering what tool you had before, you can check there and it should give you that. Below that, we have these different viewport configurations. This icon represents the panel layout that allows you to choose your perspective view. This next icon is a panel layout that provides 4 different views at a time. So you have smaller windows, but you can view the scene from the top down, from the front and the side, and a perspective window all at once. The next icon shows you 2 views or 2 different panels. This one's in perspective, and over here we have an orthographic view. This last icon will show or hide the outliner. Again, you can hide the outliner just by clicking the tab there, and it's tucked away in this little thin bar. I typically like to work with the 4-panel layout or the perspective layout, this single panel view. Now what's cool is you can switch between that 4-up layout and your single panel view just by tapping the space bar. So when I tap the space bar, it shows me these 4 views. If I tap it again, it's going to zoom into whichever view I'm hovering over. When I tap it again, it goes back to 4-up. So if I have my cursor over this view and tap the space bar, it'll take me into that view. Tap it again and it zooms me back out. Tap it again over this view and it takes me full screen into that panel layout. Tap it again and I come back to all 4. So this allows me to quickly switch from one view to another just by going through this 4-panel layout using the space bar. Now when I say tap the space bar, I do mean quickly, just tap it. If you hold the space bar down, you notice what we get is this floating marking menu. This is another way of quickly accessing a number of different commands. And this is how a lot of people can learn to model in Maya with the full screen in expert mode, because you can really access almost anything you need just from these marking menus, just by holding the space bar. But all these options are also hidden in some of these drop-down menus, as you can probably see. They're just hidden here under the space bar.